Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Worm War 1 for the Atari 2600. In this 1982 scrolling shooter from 20th Century Fox and Sirius Software, you drive a tank through a city called Teriyaki, blasting giant angry worms. I can only imagine Sirius Software named themselves ironically if this is the kind of video game they're responsible for. Worm War 1 is a unique blend of various 80s shooter elements. The joystick controls your horizontal movement and your speed as you maneuver around blocks and blast groups of worms. Progressing forward and running into stuff depletes your fuel, but luckily you can replenish it by steering through gas stations that appear with new worm waves. Ugh. Worm Waves sounds really gross, but also kind of like an underground music genre where all the percussion is replaced with swishing noises. Anyway, the goal is to maximize your score by shooting blocks and worms without losing all your fuel. You can hold the action button to rapid fire, or tap it for one shot at a time, which is necessary when you have to clear just one or two blocks in front of a fuel station without blowing it up. Firing just one shot can be tricky though, since the trigger is so sensitive. Sort of like those ketchup dispensers that squeeze out either nothing or half the bottle all at once. Except here, instead of ruining your hot dog, you just detonated a gas station, and probably reduced half the city to rubble. The upside is that even if the station is obstructed, you only need to make contact with one corner of it to refuel. But a word to the wise, this generally doesn't work in real-world applications. If you try to put a sock on and only make contact with your pinky toe, that endeavor is not likely to succeed. Worm War 1 has a few different game modes. The first two allow you to play with or without blocks in your path, and the third turns the worms invisible. You only catch a glimpse of where they are when the screen flashes periodically, and even then, you really need to focus to see them. Mom's gonna yell at me for sitting too close to the TV, but my high score hangs in the balance, so you gotta do what you gotta do. There are also settings to affect the speed of your acceleration, and whether or not the worms follow a straight path back and forth. The visuals and sound design in this game are phenomenal. This is Atari minimalism at its finest, with an attention to detail that makes every single input satisfying. The compressed, crunchy sound when you blast worms and bricks, accompanied by the playfield flashing white to accentuate the hit, the modulated acceleration noise when you speed up, and the blocks colored row by row to track the scrolling effect, the green splat graphic that replaces your tank when you run into something, and the screen-clearing audio-visual explosion that startles you whenever you accidentally shoot a fuel station, and best of all, and I can't stress this enough, is the worms inching back and forth. If you were just seeing still frames of the motion, it would be indecipherable, but playing at speed, it's some of the most convincing and well-executed animation I've ever seen in a video game. I know good animation when I see it, and these are some certified A+ worm wiggles. The most novel aspect of Worm War 1 is its use of a fuel gauge as your sole means of survival. Most games that require refueling can still kill you off with enemy impacts and stuff, but the designers here were like, nah, you're a tank. As long as you've got gas, you're as good as omnipotent. And with that being the case, Worm War 1 can be pretty easy to just keep playing indefinitely on the default settings. As long as you don't make dumb mistakes, that is. I even considered trying to play long enough to roll the score, until I realized it accounts for 6 digits. I love this game, but I don't think I could play it for 5 hours straight. You can definitely up the challenge too, by enabling the settings for invisible, sporadically moving worms. But at that point, things start to feel a bit unfair. You don't know where they're going, and you can't see them going there either. Schrodinger's worm is better as a thought experiment than a video game. My favorite part of Worm War 1 is, well, everything. It's hard to define exactly why I find it so fun and engaging, but I just can't get enough. The only thing that would make it better is if you got to play as a spaceship or a robot instead of a tank. But that might make it too perfect, and I'd never play anything else again. Overall, this game is incredible. I'll never get tired of blasting worms and blocks, and because of that, Worm War 1 has earned itself a solid spot as one of my favorite video games of all time.